The Big Green of Dartmouth College celebrated its 109th year of participation in intercollegiate football at the commencement of the 1989 season. Head coach Buddy Tevens, in his third year at the helm, had expressed high hopes and expectations for improvement over the 588 season record. Unfortunately, the '89 script did not match the preseason prospectus. When the Green hit midseason, they found themselves sporting a 1-5 slate. Of the first 6 games of the season, Dartmouth faced off with 3 scholarship programs: Holy Cross, Bucknell, and Boston University, the latter of which fell to Dartmouth in a dramatic come-from-behind victory. The remaining 3 opponents were Ivy members, Princeton, Yale, and Harvard, who defeated the Big Green by a combined total margin of 10 points. Dartmouth was victorious with the remaining schedule, which at season's end left a haunting specter. The Big Green had finished 10 points from the title. The 1989 squad was laden in talent with the likes of running back Dave Clark and quarterback Mark Johnson. Clark ended his collegiate career as Dartmouth's all-time leading rusher with 1,812 yards and setting single-game records with 219 yards on 51 carries. Johnson, a co-captain, ended his college career as Dartmouth's all-time leading passer, completing 389 of 757 attempts for 4,413 yards to lead the Big Green in each category. The defense was led by defensive tackle and co-captain Kevin Linsman. Kevin provided the leadership in a young defensive unit who suffered early due to inexperience and injury, but came together in the last 5 games to allow just over 7 points a game and finished second in league competition with 82 points allowed.
ESPN's college football Saturday. This afternoon, it's the Ivy League season opener between the Princeton University Tigers and the Big Green of Dartmouth College. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first of 6 Ivy League telecasts to come your way this season on ESPN.
Dartmouth opened the '89 season at home on Memorial Field versus Ivy League opponent Princeton University. For added impact, this game was being televised nationally as the first entry of a 6-game series, the Ivy League Game of the Week. Dave Clark gets things moving with a carry over left tackle. Junior tailback sensation Brandon Mahoney from Lincoln Sudbury, Massachusetts, is brought down during his 2nd carry of the first series with a season-ending knee injury. The loss of Mahoney was a big blow to the Green. Princeton's big gun, Judd Garrett, is given a rude welcoming by the Dartmouth defense. Sophomore linebacker Harry Wright chases down the Tiger quarterback. Wright, who hails from Houston, Texas, emerges as a solid defender early in his career. DC follows by picking up a big 18 over the middle. Johnson finds senior wide receiver Tom Parker for 11. Junior running back Sean Page picks up some real estate around left hand to set up a Dartmouth score.
Threatening to score first. Johnson, open is Clark, a touchdown. David Clark.
Page stepping in for Mahoney shows some of his stuff. Junior outside linebacker Jeff Blackburn gets a hand on a misguided pass. Princeton is met hard up the middle by the Dartmouth defense. The Tigers ended up mustering a late half score to lead the Big Green 10-7 going into the half. Princeton's offense has generated almost twice the yardage of the Big Green. Second half action now. Lichtenstein's kick is taken at Princeton's 7-yard line. Defensive back Kirk Mills tries to set the tempo for the game. The Tigers go to the outside but are caught at the line of scrimmage and fumble the ball to Dartmouth. In a passing situation, the Tigers opt for the draw but are caught by Wright and company. Princeton tries right in but again are met by a host of green jerseys. Dartmouth enters the 4th quarter down by 7. Johnson finds Stanham over the middle. Johnson back to pass, finds Page, who brings the ball into Princeton territory. A quick opener to Parker over the middle. Mike Bobo gets inside the 20.
Draw play, big hole for Dave Clark. Clark rambles into the end zone.
After Clark's touchdown, the Big Green narrow the score but are still down by 6. Chapman stifles the Tigers' efforts. Time runs out on Dartmouth and they are handed their first defeat of the '89 campaign. number of defensive stars in this one, led by Harry Wright with 22 total tackles. On the rushing ledger, Dave Clark with quite a game, 14 carries, 69 yards, and a fine 4.7 average. Mark Johnson with a fine outing in his 89 debut, 17 completions and 32 attempts. Tom Parker was on the receiving end of 6 of those for 73 total yards. Quite a game for Rob Hibbard, a 41.5 yard per average on 6 punts. The Boston University Terriers travel north to Hanover for their first meeting with Dartmouth since 1978, when Buddy Tevens was a Big Green quarterback. Buddy won that decision by a score of 20-17. The Terriers take the field and run up 2 quick scores to take a 14-point margin in the early going. Dartmouth's Harry Wright penetrates a Boston University backfield. Page rambles over left tackle. Johnson improvises to keep the green alive. Junior defensive back John Owens raises commotion in the backfield. Hibbard puts the ball up high so Chapman has time to set his sights. Johnson drops back and finds Parker for the second of 4 touchdown grabs on the afternoon, which ties the game at 14-all. With seconds remaining in the first half, BU sprints right. The Terriers try to break the tie with a field goal, but the attempt is blocked by the Big Green to close out the first half. A Terrier running back is manhandled by Wright. Johnny commotion in the BU backfield. Junior defensive back Tom Gladden in on the breakup. Rich Joyce records this sack. And again, Johnson to Parker, this time on the alley-oop, tie the score 21-all. It's time for the Dartmouth defense to dig in, and they do. With minutes remaining in the ball game, Boston scores again, but the extra point would be blocked by Brad Preble. Johnson rallies his troops. He finds Parker over the middle for the first down. Dave Clark follows by picking up big real estate over the middle. Parker brings the ball to the BU 13 for another first down. With seconds left in the ball game, Johnson finds Parker for the score. Romero's kick is good, and Dartmouth breaks into the win column. The Dartmouth defense would shut down Boston's last gasp attempt. Rich Joyce with quite a game for Dartmouth in this one. He had 2 sacks and led the Big Green with 16 total tackles. Offensively, Dave Clark really warming up now. 120 total yards, a fine 6.7 yard average. Not a bad outing for his senior quarterback Mark Johnson. 23 completions and 39 attempts, over 200 yards. Again, Tom Parker would lead the way on the receiving end. 11 receptions, 4 of those for touchdowns. For the first time in 1989, Dartmouth would take the show on the road to Lewisburg, Pennsylvania to battle the Bisons of Bucknell. The last time the two faced off was way back in 1963 when Dartmouth walked away with a 20-18 decision to extend their winning streak to a nation's longest 12 games. Although sacked in the first play of the game, Bucknell goes on to score first. A Bucknell fumble thwarts a second scoring attempt. Clark with the run up the left side. Johnson spots Bobo in the end zone for 6. The kick is no good, and Dartmouth is down by just 1. The remainder of the quarter is action-packed. Defensive pressure in the second quarter puts the Bison's backs to the wall. Bucknell is penalized for illegally touching the ball. Dartmouth takes over on the 1, where Page cashes in to take the lead 13-7. Bucknell and Dartmouth swap leads twice more during the waning minutes of the first half. Sean Page puts the finishing touches on the touchdown drive, and Dartmouth heads into the locker room with a 20-14 lead. Second half action, and the Big Green has no problem moving the ball, but unfortunately the score doesn't reflect it. Sophomore defensive back Sal Sretto with a great play. He comes up with the end zone steal. The Bisons end up capitalizing on their possessions in the second half and assume a 36-20 lead that they retain for the rest of the game. Second time in 3 games, Harry Wright would lead the way on the defensive side. Harry with 11 tackles. Offensively, another big outing for Dave Clark. He gets 117 yards. A great game for Sean Page, 106 to the Dartmouth cause. Mark Johnson put it up 42 times. He completed 20 for 252 yards. Tom Parker and Mike Bobo with 14 receptions between them. And Rob Hibbard with another big game, 41.8 yards per average on 4 punts. The Big Green returned to Hanover carrying a 1-2 record. For the 3rd consecutive game, Dartmouth faced non-league scholarship opposition. This time, the competition was highly touted and nationally ranked Holy Cross. The home crowd, ever the optimists, were hopeful for a sequel to the last home game where the Green upset the Terriers of Boston University. Coach Stevens makes no distinction between Ivy and non-Ivy games. They all counted in 1989. Dartmouth won the toss and opted to receive. After a short offensive series, the defense enters the fray. The Crusaders resort to razzle-dazzle early, but it's broken up by Preble. Late in the first quarter, Dartmouth takes over, and a screen pass to Clark breaks into cross territory. Johnson connects with Bobo down to the 29. Clark takes a handoff and bowls ahead for 11 to get inside the 10. Tight end Price Boy and fullback John Slusher paved the way for Al Rozier, who runs left to put Dartmouth on the board. The Green D stiffened, unfortunately, at the expense of star sophomore linebacker Harry Wright, who's lost for the remainder of the season. The Crusaders score in their next possession, but fail to convert. Rozier carries the ball to midfield. Holy Cross is kept in check for the remainder of the half, both in the air and on the ground. Dartmouth held a narrow 7-6 lead at the half. The Dartmouth defense tried desperately to keep the momentum up. The offense struggled for yardage. Holy Cross exploded for 14 unanswered third-quarter points. The Crusaders kept a lock on the ball for the rest of the game. Dartmouth, though, remained undaunted, but fell to a demoralizing score, the final 33-7. Junior defensive back Tom Gladden and linebacker Rich Joyce both had 10 tackles on the day. Linsman and Chapman each recorded 8. Clark carried for 87 yards and a healthy 4.3 yard per carry average. Johnson had a better than 50% completion rate for 93 yards passing. Sophomore wide receiver Jerry Gilbert had the longest gain of the day of 38 yards off a Kevin Peck aerial. Bobo led all receivers with 4 catches. Al Rozier contributed 76 yards on 3 returns. The Big Green remained in Hanover for Game 5 to celebrate homecoming and Dartmouth Night, a 101-year-old tradition which signified renewal for Dartmouth College. A renewal was in order as the Green prepared for the Yale Bulldogs. An added attraction to the occasion was the Green's second appearance of '89 on ESPN's weekly broadcast of the Ivy League Game of the Week before a national audience of millions. The Green were bent on wreaking havoc and forced Yale into numerous mistakes. Clark brought the ball to midfield, setting up Romero to make good on a chip shot and an early 3-0 lead. The Gang Greens smother the Eli's efforts. Page goes right on the counter. Clark rips up the gut. DC gets the nod again and scrambles down the left sideline and into the end zone for a touchdown. The Bulldogs mount a 10-play scoring drive to put 6 of their own on the board, but the extra point is blocked by Brad Preble to maintain the 10-6 advantage. The lead is short-lived, though, and the Green take a 12-10 back seat. Johnson runs out of running room at midfield. DC follows by fighting ahead for 9. In the closing seconds of the half, the Eli's go for broke in the corner end zone where Soretto and Lamb team up for the breakup. Under heavy pressure, Yale goes back to the airways into Tommy Lamb's waiting arms. Dartmouth found itself on the wrong side of a 12-10 score as they hit the lockers to end the first half. At the midpoint, neither team had any clear-cut statistical advantage except the scoring column. Senior kicking specialist Jason Lichtenstein's boot prevented the Bulldogs' return. Blackburn shut the door to the outside. Lensman cleaned up with a quick takedown. Linebacker Rich Joyce makes the strip, and Dartmouth regains possession. Johnson scrambles as running back Sean Page puts the bite on a dog. Penalties hurt Dartmouth, and Bobo comes up short. The Dartmouth D took up where they left off. Yale fumbles a handoff, and Joyce is in on the recovery. The Green overtake the Bulldogs on Romero's field goal. In their last possession of the third quarter, Yale runs right for a loss. Soretto lowers the hammer. Owens drives a Yaley into the cheap seats. The Bulldogs secure an early fourth quarter score, but Soretto negates a conversion. Yale 18, Dartmouth 13. Al Rogier receives the ensuing kickoff inside Dartmouth's own 10-yard line and takes it up the middle, breaking tackles. He's finally knocked out of bounds by the kicker. Yale regains the ball and scores again. Johnson fights to get back into the ball game, finding Parker wide open down the middle, but a penalty nullifies the play. Johnson goes to the air again, and Bobo hauls it in at midfield. Johnson back in the pocket hits Stanham on a sideline pattern. Nick fends off 5 Bulldogs as he picks up the extra yards.